In tonight's Cultural Connection, we learn about Dia de los Muertos. Chicago's own National Museum of Mexican Art hosts the country's largest exhibit on the Day of the Dead. And here to talk about the symbols and traditions is Cesareo Moreno, the chief curator of the National Museum of Mexican Art. Welcome to Chicago tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
First of all, give us a primer. What is the Day of the Dead?
Day of the Dead is actually I always tell people it's a celebration of life, although it has the word dead in there. My name is Cesareo Moreno, and I am the Visual Arts Director and the Chief Curator at the National Museum of Mexican Art.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that Cesareo is going to get a Keep It Culture Award. He is a unique curator. There are very few, if any, curators in the United States who can do ancient Mexico, who can do arte popular, who can do contemporary Mexico from both sides of the border, who can do modern Mexico, modern Mexican art in the United States. Very few people can do that. He can do it, and each one he does very well.
Mexico has always been a very important part of my life. I was born in Chicago. I always remained connected with Mexico, with the Bajío area in particular. I spoke Spanish first. That was my first language. And of course, the food, the music, the parties, what we celebrated, how we celebrated. Even though there was a lot of snow outside, it was very Mexicano inside.
He really became one of the top curators in the U.S. to exhibit artwork not only from Chicago, catapulting the museum to a national, international museum. He was responsible for that and continues to do so.
My grandfather, Cesareo, would go back and forth from Temascatillo in Guanajuato to Texas, and he worked the field. And then in 1928, they left Mexico, my mother included, and within a few months, my grandfather, Cesareo, died. They stayed up in North Dakota year-round in the freezing cold, in the snow, and then World War II broke out. My tios were drafted into the army one by one by one. My mom and her baby brothers, they really couldn't work the betabel. They were too young. It was really hard work. But they were told that there was work in Chicago. All my tios came back to the U.S. They all came back alive. And so the family has been a part of Chicago since the 40s, since the end of World War II. The environment that I came from was continued to be very, very Mexicano, very immigrant, and at the same time, very Chicago. Started working early on. I did drywall when I was a kid. I'm sure there were a lot of laws and rules that were broken.
His mother had a great influence on him, and making sure that he had exposure to the Mexican culture.
My mom, she really wanted me to have a good education. She saw education as the key. It really became important early on for my mom that I receive a Catholic education. And then after I graduated from Quigley, I decided that I was going to consider the priesthood. So philosophy and theology were kind of a big part of it. My third year of college, of undergrad, I went to Rome. And I continued to study art, fine art. And when I came back to Chicago, that was sort of it for the seminary. I was in the seminary at a time when liberation theology was a real big part of the Catholic Church. Liberation theology focuses a lot on people's needs, on social justice, and Latin America was a place where liberation theology was really important. So that's when I applied to School of the Art Institute. And then in 1991, I was invited to make an ofrenda for the Day of the Dead exhibit. I thought this was wonderful. It ties in my faith, ties in my culture, it ties in the fact that I know how to make things as an artist. And they sort of saw that I knew how to use a hammer, I knew how to use a drill and a level. I was invited to become a part of the installation and sort of oversee the installation of exhibitions. So it took me a while to really figure out what does a curator do? What's the meaning of this word, curate, right?
Because there was such a void in our city. Mainstream arts museums and galleries were simply not exhibiting Mexican-American artists.
I have this responsibility of keeping our roots alive here in the Midwest.
Es como un cierto catalizador de artistas, así puede él definir pues estilos y todo que ya están dándose en cada artista, y de esa manera va contribuyendo a que el artista que está en formación llegue a un nivel, o sea, llegue a otro nivel.
I married a friend, somebody that I knew since high school. We got married in Oaxaca on top of Monte Alban, which is a beautiful archaeological site. My 3 children, they were raised speaking Spanish. My mom took care of them. My wife speaks Spanish to them. They also went to dual language schools. With that came the trips to Mexico. You know, they have been to Mexico since they were children. That's who I curate for, the community. And of course, once if it's successful, if it's authentic, if it's done well, then everybody will enjoy it and everybody will learn from it. Not only will the children learn where their grandparents came from and what their culture is, but people who are not Mexican, I want them to not only see and appreciate us in a different way, in a better way. You know, I mean, they see us mowing the lawns, they see us washing the dishes, they see us making the food, but my goodness, once they realize the richness of the Mexican culture and history, maybe that'll give them a different understanding of their neighbor to the south. And then the other thing that I love is when people who are not Mexican find a connection and they say, oh my goodness, we do that too. My aunt used to do that exact same thing. We still do that celebration or that ritual, but we do it very differently.